The Supreme Court just blocked an emergency request to stop Mississippi from implementing a law that would require age verifications to go to certain websites. So what does this mean? The news is going crazy, of course, but let's see what it actually does and what the implications of this are. I'm Brian, I make videos about civics and law. Let's talk about this for a minute because, like I said, the news is going nuts. Okay, the entire opinion here is just one page because this is on something called the shadow docket, unofficially. This is when something is given kind of outside of the normal Supreme Court opinion process, and it's just kind of a special request, an emergency request, and sometimes the Supreme Court will grant these, but only under special circumstances. These special circumstances exist when the balance of harms and equities favor it. That's the wording. And in this case, it didn't, and that's the reason that it wasn't taken up and it wasn't granted. But in this case, Justice Kavanaugh says that if he'd actually gone through it, they probably would have found that it was unconstitutional. And that's really important because lately they've been moving a little bit away from First Amendment jurisprudence, and he actually cites one of the cases where they did it in his response here, so I want to draw your attention to that. This bad boy right here is Free Speech Coalition v. Paxton, and it is a case that I kind of hate. It was written by Justice Thomas, and the thing about Justice Thomas is he writes really clear and easy to understand opinions, no matter what you think of him. His opinions are usually really easy to read, and that kind of makes it worse, because when they're really easy to read and they still don't make sense, then you got a problem. And this one just didn't make sense. And I tried to make sense out of it. It just kind of, the logic wasn't there. So I was really happy to see that Kavanaugh seemed to kind of call this out. And what he did is he listed a bunch of First Amendment cases that he said were going in a particular direction. And he said, compare that to Paxton, and said, that if this came up again, that they would probably find it unconstitutional. So that was kind of good news, I think, is that maybe Kavanaugh saw Paxton as sort of the far edge of the direction that they were willing to go with this sort of case, because the situation in Paxton was almost identical to this one. Now, the other thing that people are talking about is the fact that a lot of these shadow docket cases aren't following the normal rules, and they're allowing a lot of things into the shadow docket these days that they wouldn't normally because they're coming from the president. And that is kind of true, but I'm not sure it's the emergency we think. I think if they ignored them, they would become a much bigger problem. So I think that's probably more why these things are being heard and not ignored. So I don't know if that's really the problem that some of these news outlets are saying that it is. Anyway, that's my quick take on this. Let me know if you have any questions, and like, comment, get this out there. See you tomorrow for the Aloha Friday Morning Report.